Hello everyone, this is Porsche from Roughness Studios, and today I'll be showing you guys how you can create your own master material inside of Unreal Engine and use that to dynamically change the look of your 3D objects. So let's get started. Start by creating a material. What I'm going to do is right click on the content browser and click on material over here, and I'm going to name it m_test for example. Let's open this up. After opening this up, you're going to see that we have a sphere here and we have this node here. Alright, so as you can see, the sphere is all black because I haven't assigned any colors to it or any information to this BSDF node, so it's all black now. So what this does is this is actually previewing whatever material that we've created over here. So I'm just going to add in a constant 3 vector from here, and I'm just going to connect this just like so. And if I change my color from over here, you can see this is updating on the sphere as well. So if you don't want to use the sphere for whatever that is you're doing, you can just click on this. You can get a cylinder, you can get a plane, you can also get a cube, and also there is an option to add a custom mesh to this, but I haven't set any custom mesh to it. So yeah, you can add a custom mesh to it if you want. Alright, let's switch it back to the sphere again. Alright, as you can see, there are a few options that you can change here. First is the base color, then there's the metallic, specular, roughness, anisotropy, immersive color, then normals. We're going to be keeping it simple today because this is going to be a beginner tutorial, so I'm just going to be talking on the base color, metallic, specular, roughness, and the normal this video, just to keep things simple. Alright, so let's apply this material to a object. So I'm just going to go over here and bring in a sphere just like so. Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to apply our material to it. You can see it's not what we made because we did not save this. So after saving, you can see the material updated. So if I change the color over here, you can see it's not changing on the scene, and if you want it to change, you have to click on the save button every time. So it obviously takes some time to do that, but we don't want that. So what we can do is right click on this vector 3, constant vector 3, and what I can do is I can convert this to a parameter and call this maybe color. Alright, after doing this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a material instance for this, and if I open this up, you can see there's this option to change the color. So if I change the color now, it updates here, but it's not working in here. So for that to work, we need to apply this material instance to this sphere over here. So now it's going to work. So if I change this over here, now it's going to update in real time. Alright, so let's just quickly go over this again. So if you want to control something in the instance, you first have to convert it to a parameter, otherwise it's not going to be showing up on this instance now. So I'm just going to show you another example of this. So if I just search for a constant here, and let's say I'm going to plug this into the roughness. As you can see, it does not show up here. So for this, what you're going to do is we're going to need to convert this to a parameter. I'm just going to call a roughness here and save this. So after converting it to a parameter, it shows up on this instance. Now you can tweak the roughness property of this material. You can see how it affects the reflection. So maybe you don't want to use a solid color for your material. You might want to add a texture. So for that, you're going to need to find a texture sample, and this brings up a texture sample node. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to connect it to this base color. First of all, you're going to see this error over here, but don't worry about it, because this is showing up because we don't have an actual image added to this texture sample. So let's just fix that. If I click on the texture sample, I'm going to see there is an option here called textures, and in here what I can do is I can go in and add a texture from here. I think I have a cobblestone texture, I think. Yeah, there's the cobblestone texture. So for example, I'm just going to be using this texture. So if I hit save, you're going to see this is already applied to the sphere. Alright, if I go back here, we don't see any option to swap this texture for a new one, but we might want to do that. So how do we achieve that? So if I just right click on here, I can convert this texture to a parameter. I'm just going to call it albedo and hit save, and we're going to see this albedo is showing up on our material instance. So what I can do from here, I can add any texture to it, and it's just going to apply this. Alright, so let's just switch back to our cobblestone texture. So a good thing to remember is you can see this return button or a reset button. So if you click on this, it's just going to reset to the default value that you have set in here. So for this texture, the default texture for this is going to be the cobblestone texture. So yeah, it's going to return or fall back to whatever default texture you've set over here. So if I set this to a brick texture just like this, and if I click on the reset button over here, it's going to revert back to this brick texture over here. Okay, let's use the cobblestone for now. Alright, so we basically saw how you can control the base color and the roughness. So after that, the most important thing is going to be our normals. So let's just bring in a normal map for this cobblestone textures. So I'm just going to drag and drop this here. So a good thing to remember is you can search for a texture sample from here. You can bring in a texture sample just like so, or what you can do is you can just drag and drop a texture. It's just going to create a texture sample for you. And there are a few shortcuts that you can use to create texture samples. So if I hit T, and then I left click on my mouse, it's just going to add a texture sample to your scene. So, and for the vector 3 that I bought earlier, if you hold on 3 and left click, it's just going to create a constant vector 3. And if you click on 1 and left click, it's just going to bring in a constant vector. And then if you click on 2 and left click, it's just going to bring in a constant vector 2. And if you hold on S, this is going to get you a scalar parameter. So what a scalar parameter is, it's just a constant vector 1 but turned into a parameter. If you convert this constant vector 1 into a parameter, it's going to turn into a scalar parameter over here. Okay, with that out of the way, I'm just going to plug in my normals and see what this does to our material. So you can see it added a bit of depth to this, to the cobblestone texture. So if I just quickly disable this base color, you can see what this is doing. So if I remove the normal map, you get no 3D detail in here. And if I add this normal map again, you're going to see we get all of these details. But a cool thing to know is normal maps aren't actually deforming your objects in 3D, but it just creates the illusion of making it look 3D and making it look deformed. So if we go close, just like this, if I move the camera, you can see on the top there's no actual 3D deformation going on. You can see this is just a illusion that this texture is creating, that is tricking us into believing that there is 3D deformation going on. So normal maps are a easy and quick way to get surface details without too much performance cost. So if I open up this normal map, you're going to see this bluish image, and you can see there's a bit of red and there's a bit of green over here. So what this is doing is this is just saying to the engine, like inside Unreal Engine, blue is the z-axis and red is the x-axis and y is the green axis. So it's telling Unreal Engine this face is looking at the x direction, this is on the y direction, and all the blue you're seeing is on the z-axis. So Unreal Engine calculates all of this data and projects it onto this material over here, so it gives us a 3D depth. So I'm just going to connect my base color again. You can see our cobblestone has a roughness of 0 and it is quite uniform, like it's all the way. You can see if I hit save and if I go back to my instance, if I make it 0, you can see it is uniform. The roughness is very uniform. So you might not want that to be the case. So what you can do is you can add in a roughness map to the roughness channel over here. So this is going to give it roughness, but it's not as uniform as before. If I remove this base color texture and this normal texture, you're going to see what this is doing. You can see the roughness is not uniform anymore. And if I disconnect this and connect the scalar value over here, you can see this is uniformly rough. And if I connect this over here, this is not as uniform anymore. So this texture is telling where the roughness should be 1 and where the roughness should be 0. You can see the white area over here. This means the value is going to be 1, and the darker area, the value is going to be closer towards 0. So if I go back here, you can see the black areas that correspond to 0. I'm just going to bring this texture here so you can see it better. So you can see the dark areas over here correspond to a value that is closer to 0, and if we have a value that is closer to 0 on the roughness channel, means the object is going to appear more glossy or less rough. And you can see the white areas over here. This means this is closer to a value of 1. So this means these bumps over here, you can see these are more rough. Alright, if I go back and connect all my textures over here, so you're going to get something like this. Let's talk about the metallic channel for a bit. So in this metallic channel, what you can do is you can create a scalar parameter and call this metallic, and I'm just going to connect this. This usually has a value of 0 to 1, so either the material is metallic or non-metallic, how it is in the real world actually. So what I'm going to do is go to our instance real quick and tweak the metallic value over here. As you can see, this cobblestone is now looking more and more metallic, and if I switch it back to 0, this gives it a more non-metallic look, and if I switch it back again, you can see how much difference it makes. You can also see this on here as well. Just like the roughness channel, you can also use a metallic map for this. Since I don't have a metallic map for this pebbles, so I'm just going to use a scalar parameter to assign a value to this. One thing I forgot to mention is, what you can do is, if I disconnect this for a bit, and if I click on the metallic, if I right click on the metallic channel, you're going to see an option that says promote to parameter. This is going to create a scalar parameter called metallic, so you don't have to rename it again. So you can do this same thing for the specular as well, and basically you can do this for the ambient occlusion as well. So all the nodes that you see, you can promote them to a parameter, just like so. So a good thing to know. Alright, let's move on. You might want to change the color of your cobblestones. Maybe you want to add a tint to it, maybe just adjust the color a little bit. So we can also do that inside of Unreal Engine. So what I'm going to do is hit 3 and left click. This is going to bring in a constant vector 3 node. So what I'm going to do is search for a multiply node over here. I'm just going to connect the albedo RGB to the A and the constant vector 3 to the B, and then connect this multiply to the base color. So you can see after adding this has turned our entire material black. This is doing this because our constant vector is set to a black color. So if I push it all the way to the white, so what this is going to do is this is going to revert it back to the original color it was. So So if you set it to white, then it's going to remain in its default color. So just keep that in mind. Okay, one more thing that I forgot to mention is if you hold down M and left click, is going to bring in a multiply, so you don't need to go and search for multiply every time. Alright, okay, we actually want to change the color now. If I change my slider over here, we can assign any color to this. You can see how this is affecting our material. Okay, let's just hit save. You can see our changes applied over here. Alright, but we do not want to save this every time, so we're just going to convert this to a parameter, call this Tint, and I'm just going to change the default value to white. Alright, so if I change it through here now, you can see this updates in real time. Alright, so we have added a functionality to change the tint of the material. Okay, now you might want to change the brightness of the texture. So we can also do that here inside this material graph. So for this, what we're going to need to do is, I'm just going to search for a power node. Then I'm going to hold on M and bring in another multiply. So what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to connect this multiply to the A channel and this power node to the B channel and connect this to the base color. So as you can see, this is throwing up an error. This is because we don't have anything connected to the base. So what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to hold down S to bring in a scalar parameter, and I'm just going to call this brightness. Alright, so let's connect this to the base of the power. So you're going to see this is black again. This is because our value is set to 0. Let's set a default value for this. This should be set to 1. And if I go back to my instance, you can see there is a option for changing the brightness over it. If I increase it, this gets brighter and brighter, and if I decrease it, this gets darker and darker. So now you know how you can adjust brightness inside of the material graph. Well, now you might want to change the contrast of your material. So how can you do that? So if I just search for a cheap contrast RGB and then connect this cheap contrast node over here and the result to the base color, and if I right click on the contrast and promote this to a parameter, okay, and if I go back to my material instance and click on my contrast, if I slide it, you're going to see this increases the contrast for our albedo map. So this is how you can adjust the contrast of your image texture. Alright, so you can see we have a bunch of nodes that is cluttering up our screen. So what we can do to fix this is, I'm just going to select all of my adjustments that I did here and right click on this and click on collapse nodes. So this is going to collapse all the nodes that we created, and it's just going to keep it more tidy. And if you click on this, you're going to see you have all of your nodes that you created inside of this. So you can also go in and just rename this. I'm just going to call it albedo adjustment. So after that, we can move on to how you can actually adjust the size of your textures. So you might want to do this for various reasons. So if I go back to my instance, let's just fix the contrast over here. Alright, so if I bring in my material and apply it on the surface, you can see the scale is not right. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to tile this texture so it looks okay according to the size of the floor. Let's just go ahead and do just that. If I go back to my material, I can search for something called a texture coordinate. So click on this here. So this brings in a texture coordinate node, and the shortcut for this is you have to hold down U and then left click. This is going to bring in a texture coordinate node. So if I plug this texture coordinate node into the UV, and hit apply, you can see it doesn't do anything. What you can do is inside the details panel for this texture coordinate, you can change the U tiling and the view tiling here. So if I set this to 2, this is going to change the U tiling, and if I change the Y tiling, this is going to change the Y tile size. So if I go over here, you can already see it has changed the size of the texture. So if I go over here and set this value to something like 8 and hit save, this looks much better now. But we don't want to do this every time, like, you know, we don't want to hit save and change every time. We want to do this in real time. So as you can see, this is now only affecting the UV map of the albedo, and you can see the normal maps and the roughness map haven't changed a bit. So to fix that, you're going to want to drag this and connect this to the normal UV and connect this to the UV of the roughness. So this is going to affect the normal and the roughness as well. You might want to change this texture tiling in real time. I'm just going to bring in a multiply node over here and connect this to the texture coordinate, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to search for a append vector and connect this to the B channel. Let's just plug this into all of the UVs that we have. Alright, so as you can see, this throws up error because we don't have any parameters or any values assigned to the A and B. So let's add a scalar parameter to this. I'm just going to click S to bring in a scalar parameter. I'm just going to call it tile X. Just copy. I'm just going to copy and paste this and call this tile Y. So then I'm going to connect this to that gets rid of our error message, and I want to assign a default value of 1 to both of them. Right, and I'm just going to reset this U and V tiling over here. Go and take a look at our material instance, and if I enable the X and Y tiling, if I change this to 4 and 4, you can see how this changes the tiling. You can do this, you can tile it on one axis, you can stretch it out. So it's up to you how you want to tile your textures. So now you might want to offset your texture. So what do I mean by offset is, let's say Okay, let's just bring in a text image texture so we can demonstrate it better. Okay, so if I go back to my sphere, I'm just going to change my tiling back to 1 and hit the reset button over here. You can see we have a bunch of text over here, and you might want to adjust the position of your text, and there's no way to do this as of now. So let's add this functionality to our material. So we're going to hold down A and left click to bring in a add node. So I'm just going to plug in the multiply to the A, and I'm just going to copy over this append and the scalar parameters and connect this to the B. And after that, I'm just going to connect this to all of my UVs. And before we hit save, I'm just going to rename this offset X and this to offset Y. Now if we go back to our material instance, you're going to see these two options pop up over here. So if I if I change the value of the offset X, this is going to move the entire texture on the X direction. If I want to offset it on the Y direction, I just need to change the Y offset. So this is how you can change the offset of a texture. So let's just change our albedo back to our cobblestone. Alright. Let's organize our nodes so it looks better and it's easier to work with. So I'm just going to collapse all my node over here, and I can call this texture adjustments. I'm just going to call this global texture adjustments, so it looks much cleaner now. And I'm also going to promote these to a parameter as well. Call this normal map and promote this to parameter and call this roughness map. You're going to notice that all of our parameters are not organized. Like, you have your brightness, contrast, then way down here you have your tint, then you have your offset, then your tile. We want to fix that, and we want to group all of these controls so it's easier for us to find. So how we can do that is, if I go to my collapse nodes over here, and if I click on my parameters, select them, you can see there's an option to group them. And what you can do is you can rename this and call them anything that you want. So, and this will be grouped under that name. So I'm just going to call it tiling and an offset. They should be grouped underneath the tiling and offset. So if I go over here, you can see this added a group to this instance called tiling and offset. So let's just do the same for all of our other parameters. If I just go back here, open this up, click this and call this albedo adjustments. If I go over here, you can see the albedo just shows up here. And I'm just going to group all my textures together as well. Just going to call them textures, so they're nice and grouped. You can see this now. All right. Let's say you want to use all of these adjustments for another type of material, but you don't want to go in and create all of this over and over again. To solve this issue, so I'm just going to select all of my nodes and copy them using Ctrl C. Then I'm going to open up my content browser, then right click and go down to material, and from here you're going to see material function. So I'm just going to bring in a material function. I'm just going to call this mf_texture adjustments and open this up. You're going to see something like this. This is a bit different from our normal material graph. So if I go over here and paste all of my functions, paste all of my nodes here, and if I connect my output results to this, so what this does is this creates a chunk of code that you can use in whatever material that you have. Let's say you have a material that is already created, or like it comes with a asset pack, but it does not come with any adjustments built into it. So what you can do is you can open up that material. I'm just going to use this one for example, and I'm just going to get rid of my collapsed nodes over here. And if I bring in my MF texture adjustments, then I can connect all my results in the UV channel. And this is going to work with any material that you have. So you don't have to create all those adjustments and all of those nodes over and over again. If I go over to my material instance, we're going to see I have all of my functionalities here. So let's do the same thing for the color adjustments as well. So I'm just going to copy all of my nodes. I'm going to look for material function, and I'm just going to call this mf_albedo adjustments. If I open this up and paste my nodes over here. Okay, so after pasting, what we're going to need to do is we're going to bring in our albedo adjustments over here, and you're going to notice there is no way to plug this in to the material function. So we're going to need to fix that. As you can see over here in the albedo adjustments, there is nothing plugging in to the multiply. So we want a input function that we can plug in directly from here. So just add in a input. This is currently set to vector 3. You can go in here, you can change the input type from here. So because our texture is a vector 3, so what we can do is we can just keep this to vector 3 and plug this in. And if we go back to our material, this is going to give you a vector 3 input, and from here you can just connect this and connect this to the base color. And if I just remove this and go over to my material instance, you're going to see I have all of my controls over here. And the cool part about material function is you can just create a new material over here. I'm just going to call it test. If I open this up, and let's say I just add in a texture, maybe, okay, let's say I add this texture, and now I want all those functionalities that we created for this, and I just want to add them here. So what I can do is I can just grab these two functions from my content browser, and I can add this to my UV and add this to the RGB and then the base color. And if I hit save and create a material instance for this, you're going to see all of our adjustments are present here. We don't need to create this over and over again if we have a material function. So a good thing to remember. So far we have learned how to adjust the tiling and the offset and the color, contrast and the brightness of the texture. Let's work on some other aspects of this material. So let's say we want to add a metallic texture to this cobblestone material. So I'm just going to click T and bring in a texture sample. Then I'm going to convert this to a parameter and call this metallic map. Put this somewhere over here. Add my adjustments as well. Now in here I'm just going to add a multiply and connect this metallic value to the metallic channel, and I'm just going to call this intensity, and we also need to add a texture for this as well. So I'm just going to use a black placeholder texture, so something like this, because we don't have any metallic value added to this. And in this metallic intensity node, what this is going to do is this is going to adjust the intensity of your texture. So what multiply does is this can intensify whatever texture that you have plugged into the metallic or the roughness. So we can also do the same thing with the roughness as well. If I add in a multiply and add the roughness and connect this to our roughness channel, this is going to add the same functionality to our roughness channel as well. Okay, now you might want to adjust your normals in the same manner, but normals are a different. They're not a grayscale or a linear color texture, and that is why if you add a multiply and change the intensity of the normal map, it's not going to look right. It might create some artifacts. So in order to avoid that, what we can do is we can add in a flatten normal node and connect our normal map over here, connect this like so, and promote this. Alright, so now we have a normal adjustment. So I'm just going to quickly disconnect the base color so you can see this. So if I increase the flatness to, let's say, 1, this is going to appear flatter. See, there's no, so you cannot really see any normals in here right now. So if I change it to, let's say, something to 0.5, you can see this increased the flatness of the normal map. If I put it to something like, let's say, 0, you can see the intensity of the normal map is much greater. So this is how you can adjust your normal map. Okay, let's just connect back all our nodes. So I'm just going to quickly assign these to a group. Maybe let's just call them intensity. I'm just going to change the roughness value to 1 so it actually uses the texture. Let's also give this metallic map its own group, we already created this textures group here, so I'm just going to apply that. So you can see all of our functions are really neatly organized here, so it's easier to work with now. So we have a master material that has the functionality to change all of your textures, change their offset and their tiling, change the brightness of your albedo, contrast, tint, and also change the intensity of your roughness map, metallic map, and your normal map as well. So this is it for this video. If you guys have any questions, just let me know in the comment section below, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.